Hey everyone, Daniel here and welcome back to another video. I hope all of you are having an absolutely phenomenal day out there. As always, here today, I want to talk to you about Voyager Digital because we have a lot of updates to go through pertaining to a new press release given out by the company this morning pertaining to NASDAQ uplistings, platform scalings, share buybacks, and lastly, we're going to go through my long-term price targets on Voyager Digital stock, and I'll touch on the VGX token. A packed video here today for you guys, so if you find any value in it whatsoever, please consider subscribing, and let's get into it. So first and foremost, we have Voyager Digital joining the Blockchain Association, and I'm not going to kind of touch on this too much because there isn't really too much to be said here because it doesn't impact the company in a massive way. If you don't know what the Blockchain Association is, it's essentially a community of different companies involved in the cryptocurrency space that act as the voice of the industry. So now Voyager is joining a bunch of different companies like Kraken, like BlockFi, a variety of others to represent the industry and make decisions when it comes to potentially environmental things or other things along those lines. But when we talk about a potential impact on the company, it isn't too big. This is mainly just Voyager kind of growing their reputation as a company. That's kind of, I think, the biggest positive out of all of this and getting their name out there. But, generally speaking, it isn't too significant. And you have here kind of exactly what the situation is. As a member of the Blockchain Association, Voyager has the opportunity to participate in working groups that address issues that are crucial to the company and the crypto industry as a whole, including securities, litigations, regulations, DeFi, custody, staking, diversity, privacy, and more. So Voyager can participate in these conversations and really kind of push different things throughout the industry as time goes on. So, potentially pushing their agendas. It's not too big of a difference or deal breaker when it comes to Voyager as in the company, the stock, the token. But, it's good to hear that they're getting their name out there and they're getting kind of their opinions out there at this moment in time, because Voyager is obviously a very well-respected firm within the cryptocurrency industry, a very big brand, and to have them within this organization is probably very valuable to them. When I talk about Voyager, though, it doesn't really impact them on a very high level. So next thing, I want to take you guys through some very interesting information pertaining to three main topics. First and foremost, the major platform upgrade that we're going through at this moment in time, and some timelines to what's happening. Next, an update as to exactly what's happening with the NASDAQ uplisting and uplisting to the Toronto Stock Exchange. And lastly, we have some clarification pertaining to the kind of share buyback that Voyager is participating in over the next year. When we talk about where I got this information from, I can't disclose that sadly, but it is from a trusted anonymous source, and you have my confidence that this information is correct and comes from reliable people, essentially. So when it comes to this major platform upgrade that we're in at this moment in time, we can expect things to stabilize at Voyager by the end of June, which is roughly a month away. We can expect that 10 million verified users number to come a little bit later, potentially throughout the summer, but by the end of June, it is expected that the Voyager platform will be much more stable. This is big, as we made a video a couple of days ago talking about how important it is for Voyager to minimize the amount of platform outages to increase customer satisfaction in both the short term and the long term. That will be very important for growth moving forwards. So to hear that, potentially by the end of June, to have a much more stable platform is big news pertaining to growth that we're going to be experiencing throughout the summer. Now, next point I want to touch on is exactly what's happening with the NASDAQ uplisting. As we know, a couple of days ago during the conference call, during yesterday's interview, Steve Ehrlich said that to get to the NASDAQ, we first need to uplist to the Toronto Stock Exchange. Now, when it comes to the TSX uplisting, we can expect a time frame of around July to August. Once that happens, the path to the NASDAQ is much more clear, and we can expect it potentially, this is my opinion judging by what I've heard from the Toronto Stock Exchange uplisting, potentially in the back half of this year. And, I really expect that to happen. And once it does, that's a major catalyst as it allows so many more major institutions to invest in Voyager, because currently they're on the OTC exchange and the Canadian Securities Exchange. Not many institutions can actually invest in them. Once they uplist, a lot more institutions and a lot more larger corporations can actually invest in Voyager, and that will be a large money inflow and potentially a big catalyst for the company moving forwards. The last thing I want to touch on is exactly what's happening with this share buyback. Obviously, Voyager announced a potential up to 5% share buyback over the next year. Now, this 5% isn't from shares outstanding, it's from their fully diluted share count of 172 million shares. So that's right around 8.6 million shares that Voyager can buy back over the coming year. We'll see if they end up buying all of this back, but if they do, it does increase long-term price targets relatively significantly, and we'll touch on that when we go through exactly what my long-term price targets are on Voyager, actually right now. So what I want to do here next is take a look at my long-term price targets on Voyager digital stock, exactly where I think it's going over roughly the next 3 to 5 years, give or take, and just kind of take a look at the business on a fundamental level. First and foremost, before we get started, my opinions will most likely differ from yours. So if you have a difference in opinion, feel free to go to the description down below, click the link to download the spreadsheet and fill in the numbers and come up with your own revenue or net income or PE ratios to get a potential kind of valuation for the company looking out 3-5 years down the road. Keep in mind with Voyager, it's so difficult to come up with a potential valuation for them given the nature of their business and how small they currently are. So, without further ado, let's get into it. First and foremost, let's take a look at their current valuation. This is very important. Their current share price is around $20 per share, give or take a little bit. Fully diluted share count is 172 million shares fully diluted, which gives us a fully diluted market cap of around $3.4 billion at this moment in time. So now that we understand their current valuation, let's take a look at my revenue, profit, and valuation projection. So, when it comes to my model, this is different from what I had previously by a significant margin. And when it comes to this model, I'm using total funded accounts instead of assets under management. Why is this? On the conference call yesterday, the CEO of Voyager, Steve Ehrlich, said, you know what, assets under management may not be the best way to value our company. Other metrics may do it more justice. Something like principal value traded or monthly revenue per account might be a little bit better. So what we're going to use is kind of a more of a conservative situation using total funded accounts, and I hope to communicate that to you guys right now. So I'm going to use 5 million total funded accounts, and I don't have a date. I don't have a date for these price targets. Wherever you think Voyager may hit 5 million total funded accounts, you can assume this to be that long-term price target. I personally think a company like Voyager has the opportunity to get in and around 1.5 million, potentially 2 million if they execute on a high level, total funded accounts by the end of 2021. What happens longer term? That's a little bit more kind of unknown. Obviously, we have Canadian and European expansion coming, and obviously as cryptocurrencies continue to gain popularity, we expect total funded accounts to increase. There's also that unknown of a bear market happening in 2022, 2023, which would put a bit of a pause to total funded account growth throughout that period. Anyways, wherever you think 5 million total funded accounts will come, assume this to be that price target, whether that's 2022, 2023. I think maybe 2023 to 2025 is more of a realistic situation when it comes to 5 million total funded accounts. Now, the next thing, and this is also so debatable, what is monthly revenue per account? Currently, we're at $100. But longer term, this will drop as, the average spread drops, as kind of the amount of activity on average per account decreases, which will also happen with time. We expect this number to decline. And, I think $50 is the most kind of the highest you can go when it comes to this. If a 50% drop from here when it comes to average revenue per account. So when it comes to this, if you think this is a little bit too bullish, you might want to price in the fact that, Voyager still has a lot of products that are coming out, whether that comes to margin or credit cards or debit cards or stock trading, that might increase this kind of dollar per account figure up a little bit. Coinbase is currently sitting at around $35 per account. So, Voyager, $50 per account. Whether or not that price is in the release of new products, that's up to you. I'm personally not doing that. I think that's, again, a very big unknown. We don't know how much revenue payment processing is going to bring into Voyager or how big that will get. I think $50 is very realistic on average per funded account from their core crypto side of their business. So that gives us around $600 yearly per account in revenue. So multiply those two together and we get around $3 billion in yearly revenue at around 5 million total funded accounts. Again, this is using that conservative number of $50 per account. So at $3 billion in revenue, now let's determine some profitability. The company currently just reported earnings with 50% operating income margins. Absolutely huge. That's essentially EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciations, and amortizations. The thing about Voyager's business is that there are a lot of fixed costs that don't necessarily increase with an increase in revenue. So, as revenue increases potentially 2, 3, 4x, costs might only increase by 50%, maybe 100%, but not nearly as much as total revenue. So we expect EBITDA margins to increase with time. Again, I think 60% is very realistic over the next couple of quarters, let alone the next couple of years, which could potentially get a little bit higher. But again, I don't want to go too bullish on this. This is more of a base case scenario for me. Now, I'm going to use 15% for interest, taxes, depreciations, and amortizations. That's around a quarter of their total operating income, which kind of leaves around 3% roughly for interest, depreciations, and amortizations, as taxes are most likely going to come in at around 22 to 23%. So I think that's fine, which leaves us a net income margin of around 45%. Keep in mind, this is most likely going to be different. It's very difficult to project this far with a company like Voyager. But assuming 45% of their revenue going down to net income, which makes them one of the most profitable companies in the world, we get a total net income margin of around $1.35 billion. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, what we take is a PE ratio of 30. And again, this is something you might want to change, as it's very difficult to value Voyager 5 years, 3 years out. But this is kind of valuing them in the middle of a value company and a high growth company. A lot of these high growth tech names trade in the PE ratio range of around 40, potentially 50, while value stocks trade at under 20. So a 30 is kind of assuming both situations. We have yet to see what Wall Street ends up valuing Voyager at. But again, this is more of a realistic situation, realistic target to see where Voyager could realistically be at 5 years, 3 years down the road. So using this PE ratio on this total net income, we get a long-term market cap of $40.5 billion, or a long-term price target of $235 per share. This is over a 10x from today's prices, and what's absolutely phenomenal is that this price is in a 50% decline in monthly revenue per account. 5 million total funded accounts, which is very, very possible over the next 3 to 5 years. It prices in EBITDA margins of 60%, which are also very realistic, and a PE ratio of 30, which is honestly maybe a little bit low for a company like Voyager, which is obviously experiencing a lot of growth currently and will experience a lot of growth moving forwards. So this is my thought. This is what I think Voyager could realistically be trading at 5 years to 3 years down the road. Now, if this ends up coming true, who knows? There are so many different factors that we need to consider with a company like Voyager, but I hope this kind of just gives you a picture of their potential. Voyager, this is just based off of their core crypto side of their business. What if payment processing takes off? What if their stock side of their business absolutely takes off? What if they release some new unknown product over the next few years here that absolutely transforms the business in a massive, massive way? I hope this shows you the possibility of Voyager and why I'm so confident in it over the next few years. So, even if we get a substantial decline in average revenue per account to potentially something like Coinbase levels, we still get significant upside, although I don't think that's going to happen. But it just kind of shows you, how much upside there is with Voyager over the coming years. And I have yet to make a more of a bear case in the situation of a bear market. If we did end up seeing that, obviously that would substantially reduce returns over at least the next couple of years here. But, crypto, it's here to stay. And Voyager is one of the companies at the forefront of that, and I'm very happy having 35-40% of my stock market portfolio in them, given the upside that we just saw. So now that we talked all about Voyager digital stock, let's focus in on the VGX token. I personally hold both, but I own much more stock than I do VGX, and there's a reason because of this, and it's because VGX is much less predictable. We just went through a potential model with the stock that takes into account revenues and profitability probability and valuation to come up with a potential target. When it comes to the token, although you can do this to a certain extent, you can only go so far, and I think this applies to all cryptocurrencies. It's very, very difficult to come up with potential price targets, and although I do think VGX, that does apply to VGX rather, I think VGX is one of the better ones, where it's actually backed by a business and backed by a cryptocurrency brokerage that is growing at a massive scale. And when we talk about the VGX token and my long-term price targets on it, although I do believe that fair value for VGX could be anywhere from, 20, potentially up to $40 per token by the end of this year, as long as the loyalty program goes live and everything goes well. But, you have to consider that as they release new products and as new people come onto the platform, there are a lot of variables. What if they lower the eligibility requirements for the loyalty program? What if they kind of announce a new product or announce the VGX blockchain? There's so many different moving parts when it comes to the token that makes it so much less predictable, but no doubt in my mind that the token will do well as long as Voyager Digital does well as a company. Talking about the recent downtrend we've seen in the token price, I've talked about this before and I'm going to repeat it again. We're waiting for the token swap. Once the token swap gets through, we're going to get the Voyager loyalty program coming in within the next month and a half. I'm hopeful that this summer we'll get the Voyager loyalty program. That is when the utility case of the VGX token will fully be unleashed, and that's when we'll see its potential. That's my opinion, and that's what I'm betting on with my bet on VGX. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you found any value in this video whatsoever, please consider subscribing. And by the way, we just hit over 3,000 subscribers on the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you that watch my videos every single day. It's absolutely phenomenal. So much fun on my part to make these videos about Voyager, the stock market, cryptocurrencies, and I am so glad that you enjoy watching these videos. So thank you so much for being here. I love you all, and see you all in the next one. Bye.